I've got some fun surprises coming your way today. I think I've redeemed myself. So for those of you that remember last week's project, if you didn't catch it and you don't remember, trust me, you didn't miss anything. But for those of you that do remember last week's debacle, I've definitely redeemed myself in this week's projects. Hello everyone, welcome back. I am so glad y'all are here and that you didn't give up on me after last week's debacle. So for those of you that missed that episode, trust me, you didn't miss a thing. This week's projects are going to be so much better, I promise. We are going to jump into 3 designs. I have 3 designs to share. We're going to do some fun things. We're going to play with color, which is something I don't generally do because I definitely have my favorite color palette and tend to stick with that in everything I do. However, this week I am going to jump out of my comfort zone a little bit and introduce some really fun, bold colors. We are also going to be doing some floral arranging and some DIY projects. So are y'all ready to jump into this week's projects? Our first project is going to be attempt number 2 at last week's design. So last week's attempt was just a complete and total disaster. They turned out absolutely horrible. So I have a better way for us to implement that design. So project number 1 is attempt 2 at last week's design, which I love. I love the design plan. So we're going to recreate it in a much better way. Are y'all ready to try this design one more time? I am feeling very confident that this attempt is going to be far superior to last week's debacle. So I was thinking it might be really fun to attempt this design with some air dry clay. So we are going to first create the form. Now, I've been working with air dry clay for quite some time now. I know I still have a lot to learn because I have watched so many people create cool designs like this, just free form with air dry clay. However, I tried and it just kept collapsing. So I thought, let's just build a form, make it super simple. So I'm cutting out all of my pattern pieces from some foam board here. And this entire pattern for all 3 sizes, I will have available for y'all as a free printable, and that will be listed in the link for that will be in the description box. So to assemble all of our foam board pieces together to create our cute little houses, I'm just simply going to hot glue them together. So I start with one front piece, attach the side piece with some hot glue, and then just repeat this entire process all the way through for each one of our birdhouses. Hot gluing these together worked like a charm. So here is what we have. This is our form completely assembled. So the only thing I have left to do here is attach a bottom to this, and then we need to cut the hole in one side of our roof so that we can actually use these as vases. So I will do that, and then we can start working with our clay. So I am just using some Sculpey air dry clay here. This is actually, I really like this clay. It's actually one of my favorites because it's really easy to use. I also like, oh, what's that other brand I use sometimes? There's a couple of them, and I'll have them listed in the description box for y'all. So the first thing I do is just roll this out, and I am using my magic rolling pin to do this. If y'all don't know what a magic rolling pin is, this thing is a game changer. It rolls your dough evenly all the way across, so that you get the same thickness throughout. And I'll have this listed in the description box for y'all as well. So once I got it all rolled out to my desired thickness, I'm just going to come back in and cut all of my shapes out one more time from the clay so that I can get a precise fit on each of our forms. Just a little tip here. Keep all of your cut pieces underneath a damp paper towel while you continue cutting. This just ensures that your clay doesn't start to dry out, because we definitely don't want that to happen. All right, so now that I have all of the pieces cut out for this birdhouse, I'm going to start attaching the clay. However, the first thing I want to do is prepare the foam board first to just ensure that my clay is actually going to stick, because I've never used foam board before as a form. That's a mouthful. I wanted to make sure that I covered all of my bases here. So I coated this with some wood glue, and the only reason I'm using my wood glue here is because this one is waterproof, but the waterproof Mod Podge will work just as well. I just think this is a good step to take. It just gives you that extra security, that knowing that your clay is going to stick to the form. It also helps to prevent cracking as the clay dries. So now I'm just going to start forming all of our pieces. So I just glue each piece into its appropriate spot first. Once I've done that, we will come back in and start filling in all of the gaps and start melding our clay together. So first, let's just go ahead and get all of our pieces attached to the form. Now we can go ahead and start filling in all of our gaps, and I just take a little bit of clay and rub it between my hands and then place it into one of our gaps here, and then using my thumbs that are slightly damp, I dip my thumbs in just a teeny tiny bit of water and just start working the clay and melding it into each other so that we hide all of the seams. Using damp fingers really does help, because this clay is really forgiving, and your damp fingers just helps make it a little bit more pliable. So that's all I do here, is simply just fill in all of the gaps with just little rolls of clay, use my thumbs to meld the clay into itself and hide all of the seams. Something to keep in mind as you are working your clay and melding all of our pieces together so that it just really does become one is you definitely want to keep your fingers damp, but you don't want them to be soaking wet, because if you get the clay too wet, it almost breaks the clay down and makes it really thin, which when it dries will cause cracking in the clay. So keep that in mind, to keep your fingers damp but not super wet. Okay, so I have melded all of my clay together. I'm feeling really good with how this looks. It's looking like one unit instead of a whole bunch of pieces of clay. It's all been melded together. So we need to go ahead and cut our circle out for the vase. And I just cut this out with my X-Acto knife, using the form as my guide, and then just came in with a damp finger and kind of softened all those edges, made sure that there was clay covering all of the foam board so that you didn't see any of the foam board, and then I just worked it and melded it all together. Another thing that I have picked up as, the more I start working with this clay, the more things I'm learning and the more tricks and tips that I'm learning. So something else that you can do is use a very soft, damp sponge to just kind of smooth out the clay, because when we work it, we get, some little dents in it from our fingers and whatnot. So this helps really smooth it out. I do think the trick here is to have a lot of patience and work it and just, work it until you get it a very smooth surface. I'm not very patient, so I did still have a few little dents in here from my fingers, but that's okay because it just makes it feel a lot more handmade to me. So once that step is done, I've let this air dry clay thoroughly dry. I let it set for about 3 days to fully dry. You definitely want to make sure it's completely set up and hardened before we start painting. So I'm feeling confident with that. I did get a teeny tiny bit of cracking underneath the ridge lines from our roof, but I was able to just sand that off. So I did take these out to the shop, gave them a good sanding to kind of help just knock down any rough edges. And now we are ready to paint. And I'm very excited here, y'all, because I am going to introduce some color into this. I don't normally use a lot of color in my palette, but I thought it would be fun to kind of just make these a little more festive and fun. So I've mixed up my colors here. These are all my own paint colors that I've mixed and blended myself. And so they don't really have names. We could name them if you want, but as of right now, these are just Alicia's colors. So this one is kind of this really pretty moody mauve color that I created. It's a little bit it's got a little bit of brown in it. So it's kind of like a brownish pink mauve, I guess, if you will. So that's all I'm going to do here now is just come in and start painting all of these birdhouses. I did choose 3 colors to do this, and something to, keep in mind is choose the colors that are very complementary to one another. So this one is a really deep, beautiful purple. I have actually used this blend before. I will try to put my blends in the description box for y'all, but I don't always write them down. Sometimes when I am mixing color, I literally just sit and play and mix and have fun with it and then forget what colors I've used to create this color. So this purple color, though, I do think I have my formula for it, so I will try to have it listed. The pink one, I'm pretty sure I have it, but I'll do my best to link color combinations and my color formulas here if I have them written down. The color that I'm using on this third birdhouse is actually a really beautiful brownish gray color that I created. However, after I got it all painted, I decided I didn't like it, so I do change this one to a beautiful navy blue, which you can see here. Okay, y'all, so I did put 2 coats of paint on each one of these birdhouses, and then I came in and just sealed them with a matte sealer. They don't really look super matte here, but I did use a matte sealer, and y'all, I have to say, I am extraordinarily pleased with the results. These are so much better than last week's attempt at this design. I really am liking these. Something else you could do with these if you wanted to is you could really decorate these up if you wanted. I personally like a little bit more simplistic style, so I chose to leave these plain. But the sky is the limit here. You could paint flowers on them. Just do you. Create these to your liking, your taste, and your style. So now we get to go ahead and add some florals to these. And this is also where you can just have fun, take creative liberties, and enjoy the entire process. Okay, y'all, so I have to say, I definitely think this is so much better than last week's attempt. I actually really love working with air dry clay. I love sculpting with it. It is somewhat new to me. We've played with it a little bit, but not a whole lot. So this was a ton of fun to add to implement this design with the air dry clay. And you could use these as vases. However, I decided to use them in my studio space and put my paintbrushes in them. I think it's just kind of fun, and it adds a little bit of color to my workspace. So y'all are gonna have to let me know what you think of attempt number 2. I do know that they are a little plain. They would be a lot of fun to add design to them. You could add flowers, you could do anything. However, for me personally, I kind of like just the plain, minimalistic style of these. I am really excited about project number 2. We are going to do something super simple with this project. We're going to be playing with some quick set resin and a few molds. So I'm super excited to share this one with y'all. So let's just jump right into it. If y'all have been with me for a while, you know I love my resin. I love to work with resin. It is so much fun. So the resin that I am using here is this Alumilite casting resin. It is the quick set. It sets up in 10 minutes. It comes in 2 parts, part A and part B, and you mix this to 1-to-1 ratio. So, and then we've got our molds here, and y'all, when I found these molds, I was over the moon excited. These are some cute little birdie molds, and I can hardly wait to pour these. I am so excited. It's crazy how excited I am, but I really do love playing with resin. It's so magical to me. I just love mixing it up and then watching the magic happen. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I wasn't exactly sure how many ounces each of these molds held. So I was just guessing here. So I started out with creating 4 ounces. So, and because this is a 1-to-1, you pour in 2 ounces of part A and then 2 ounces of part B. These little measuring cups are so wonderful because they have precise ounces and milliliters on them. So I will also list these in our supply list for y'all. So once you get your 2 A and B, your part A and part B mixed together in the cup, it's going to look really cloudy when they first combine. So you want to stir this until that cloudiness starts to dissipate and it becomes clear again. One thing to keep in mind with this resin though is it is a quick set resin, so you do not have a whole lot of working time. So you definitely want to be prepared, have all of your supplies out and ready. So because once this is mixed, you have to just pour. Okay, so I will have these molds listed on our supply list for y'all. So the Big Bird took about 3 3/4 ounces, and the Small Bird took about 2.5 ounces to fill. So keep that in mind if you decide to recreate these. So now we get to just sit and watch the magic happen, y'all. This is so exciting to me. So this literally sets up in about 10 minutes. So when I pour, I usually set my timer for about 12 minutes just to give it a little extra setup time before demolding. But you can see it happening here. It just starts to happen right before your eyes, and I love it. It just makes me giddy. All right, it's been about 12 minutes now, and we can go ahead and demold. Most of the time, I am able to demold easily. These ones were a little bit more fiddly. I did struggle a little bit with these ones, but just take your time. And I think the trick for me, what I discovered here, was to kind of roll the mold off of the bird, and so that it's kind of, you're rolling it almost inside out. And once I started doing it that way, it worked a lot more better, a lot easier, not a lot more better, it worked a lot easier. Okay, so y'all, look at this. Isn't this gorgeous? I mean, this is a perfect pour. I love this. It's so exciting. So we'll go ahead and demold the second one, and then we get to paint them. I know it's not super exciting to watch me paint, but I did want to share a little bit of this process with y'all just so you could see the color palette that I chose here. So again, I went outside my box a little bit and chose some really fun colors. These are also my own colors that I have pre-mixed. These ones I did not write the formulas down for, so I apologize for that. But for this smaller bird, I'm created this really pretty kind of brownish mustard color. Now, a little trick before painting your resin molds, because the resin is a very slick surface when it is completely set up, you do want to coat this with like a layer of Mod Podge or any kind of like tacky glue will work. You just want to coat it with something first, and this just helps ensure that your paint is actually going to adhere really well to the resin bird. If you do not use some kind of a glue coating first, you really do run the risk of your paint just chipping right off the resin. I've worked with resin enough to know that that's exactly what happens. So be sure and coat it first. I just used Mod Podge to do mine and it worked great. So I'm just painting them, y'all. And it did take about 3, actually 4. I think I used 4 coats of paint to fully cover these. So I did one in this really pretty mustard brown color and the other in a really pretty deep moody blue. And here's how they turned out. I absolutely love these. How cute are these little birdies? Y'all, this is such a simple, easy, quick project. I mean, we worked this up in 30 minutes from start to finish, the painting, letting paint dry. So they worked up so fast, but for something so little, I think they have a huge impact. I'm excited to style these. I think they are going to be so pretty in my decor. I love the color palette. This one is something I could get behind. I've really been liking blue a lot lately, and I thought the mustard, this brownish mustard yellow, just complements the blue so nicely. So y'all are gonna have to let me know what you think of these little cuties and the color palette. Give me your thoughts on the color, because it's definitely different and bold for me. Our last project of the day is going to be filled with so much funness. We're going to be incorporating some of my favorite activities. We're going to do a little bit of woodworking, some stenciling, and some floral arranging, all wrapped into one beautiful bundle. So let's go jump into project number 3. Again, I'm really excited about this project. I think I say that all the time, but y'all, I do really get excited about working on these projects. So for this one, we're going to create a birdhouse planter, but this one's going to be really fun. We're going to get into some serious detail here on this one. The first thing we need to do though, however, is cut out our pieces. So I have created this pattern here. I will also have this pattern available for y'all as a free download. And the link for that will be in the description box. You know the drill. It's always in the description box. I always have a supply list underneath the video in the description box of everything that we use in our projects. Okay, so I just simply trace the pattern onto our wood pieces, and once I get these traced on, I'm going to take them out to the wood shop and cut them out on my scroll saw. Of all the tools that we have in the wood shop, the scroll saw is by far my favorite tool. I absolutely love working on the scroll saw. I love cutting out shapes and pieces and designs. For me, it is a happy place. It is my happy place in the wood shop for sure. So if y'all are thinking about getting started with woodworking, you don't have power tools and you're just not sure where to start, I recommend a scroll saw. They're very inexpensive. This Ryobi one that we have, it's one of the nicer ones that I've ever actually owned, and we paid less than $200 for this. So, it's not a bad price. So a scroll saw is a really good addition to your wood shop if you're thinking about getting started. Okay, y'all, so all of my pieces are now cut out, so now we need to assemble our birdhouse. So the very first thing that I did here is take my side pieces and measure them, because I need to put the bottom on, but I want the bottom to be on the inside of the birdhouse so that it's essentially kind of hidden and you don't see the seams from that. So I first measured my side pieces, made the marks, and then came in with my bottom piece just to double check that it fit into the marks before I fully attach it. To assemble our birdhouse, I'm just going to be using some wood glue and a finish nailer to do this. Now, if you don't have a finish nailer, you can use little tiny nails. I do recommend, if you're going to use little nails and a hammer, though, to pre-drill your holes so that you don't run the risk of splitting your wood, especially if you're using a thinner wood like I did here. Okay, so I've just added some wood glue to the pieces. I did use some tape to just help me hold it into place as I was nailing the pieces. It's just a good way to get started. After you get your first couple pieces started, you don't really have to use the tape, but it really does just, it almost acts as like a third hand almost, if that makes sense. All right, y'all, so I'm just going to go ahead and get this assembled really, really quickly, and then we get to move on to the fun stuff. Our birdhouse is fully assembled. Now, I did not put a roof on this, in case you're wondering why I didn't, because we're going to turn this into a planter. So I've got it all assembled. I'm actually feeling really proud of myself. I feel like I did a pretty good job on this, y'all, and I did it without Michael's help, so pat on the back for me. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and paint. Now we're going to be doing some stenciling on this, and we're going to do a reverse stencil method. I like using the reverse stencil for a lot of reasons, but we'll get into that in just a minute. So the first thing we have to do, though, to prepare this for our stencils is to put a base coat down. So this is the color that I want showing underneath my top coat. This is what color I want my stencil to be, if that makes sense. It'll kind of all start to come together as we get further into this project. So the color that I'm using here is just this really beautiful brownish gray color. I actually love this color. It's one of my favorite colors. It is one of my colors that I pre-mixed. I do think I have the formula for this one, so if I do, I'll share it with y'all. All right, so I did 2 coats of our base color on the birdhouse and let it dry thoroughly. Before applying your stencils, you definitely want to make sure that your paint is completely dry and set, or you're going to have some issues down the road. Your paint will peel up when we go to take up the stencil and reveal our pattern. So I am just going to come in, and I'm using some stencils that I created on my Cricut cutter. I'm just using a whole bunch of leaves and stems and just a bunch of fun stuff. I will have all of these linked for y'all as a free downloadable pattern. That way you can reuse this one if you so choose. So I'm just applying these stencils all over. I did do this in little small sections because I wanted to make sure that I got the grouping, kind of precise. I wanted it to be very whimsical and sort of haphazard. So now all of our stencils are down. I do come in and make sure that they're all fully adhered to our surface. And then we will go back over this with our original color. The reason we do this is it helps prevent bleed through when we go to place our top color on this. So I'm going to place this one more coat of this color and let it dry thoroughly before moving on to our top coat. Now that our last coat of paint has thoroughly dried, we can come in with our top coat color. So this is the color that is going to primarily show on our birdhouse. This is going to be the main color. And so I think it's starting to make a little bit more sense here how the reverse stencil works. So we place this color over our stencils, and then when we peel up all of our stenciling, that initial color, our first color that we place down, is going to be the color that's going to show through with all of our patterns. This step is so satisfying to me, especially when we get to this part, and that is revealing all of our beautiful stencil work underneath. So one of the reasons that I love this reverse stencil method so very much is because you get these crisp, clean, beautiful, sharp lines. I prefer this one so much more than a traditional stencil method for that reason. So once we've peeled up all of our stencils, all of our vinyl, and revealed this beautiful pattern, I'm just going to come in and seal it with a little bit of clear wax. And now we get to move on to my favorite thing, and that is creating a floral arrangement inside our little birdhouse planter box. And this is one of my favorite things. I love floral arranging. For me, it's just so peaceful, it's so relaxing, and it's such a satisfying, you get such a satisfying end result. So I just come in and create a base layer of just some really pretty short greenery, and then I'm going to come in with some taller greenery and just kind of build this up, fill it out, have fun, just enjoy the process. This is one of those things where I play. If I don't like it, I take it out, I kind of start over. There's real no rhyme or reason to how I do this. There's no big giant rule. You just play and have fun until it's looking really full like this. I love this. I think this turned out really, really good. It's so, so pretty. Okay, y'all, so what do we think of this? I love it. I am absolutely in love with this piece. I think it turned out so cool. I am really, really anxious to hear y'all's thoughts on this because it's a little bit different. It's not something I would typically gravitate towards, but I think it turned out absolutely lovely. I especially like all the floral arranging in it. So y'all are gonna have to let me know what you think of this project. Okay, y'all, so that wraps up our 3 designs for today. I love every single one of them. I had a ton of fun creating these ones. I really feel so much better about the new Birdhouse vase design or paintbrush holder. It can be either or, right? I feel so much better about that design. I love how it turned out using the air dry clay. I love our little birds, and I think our birdhouse planter box with the arrangement in it is absolutely stunning. So I am really curious to know if out of the 3, y'all have a favorite. I'm pretty sure mine is, believe it or not, our little resin birds. I know they are just so simple, but somehow they are so sweet to me, and I just really, really love them. So that would be my first favorite, and then our birdhouse planter box turned out really good, and of course, I do really like the new version of our birdhouse vases. That wraps it all up. Thank you all so much for being here with me today. I truly hope that y'all enjoyed the projects that we worked on together. I hope they gave you a little bit of inspiration and some fun ideas for your spring decor. I am so happy with how everything turned out, especially on the heels of last week's major disaster. So thanks again, y'all, for being here with me. Next week, I've got some fun things coming your way, as always. So come back, see me again next week. Until then, y'all take care, and I will see you soon. Bye, friends. I invite y'all to come and join our members group. It is a fun place to share our creative journey with one another, ask questions, share ideas, craft together, and so much more. So to see all the perks available in our membership plan, I will have the link in our description box below.